voices united, no one's too small. Alex and I can cry out loudly the truth. Scream for justice like a fever-broken youth. Every word's a bullet tearing through the night. In this war of words, the soldiers in the fight.
And we are live, and this is SitRep PH, the podcast on Philippine affairs and Filipino interests. Happy Sunday, everyone. So, today is our episode 16 of SitRep, and joining with me is Karen. But before I introduce Karen, I will introduce our guest speaker for today's podcast. We have Professor Aaron Jed. He is a professional lecturer on strategic studies on Greater East Asian geopolitics and multilateral politics, political risk, Chinese politics, and foreign policies. So before we uh, go to the main questions or the main topic, let me introduce my guest co-host. Hi, Karen. Say hi to our listeners and viewers of Sitrep.
Hello, good afternoon, or is it good evening when we air this? I'm Karen and I closely follow Philippine current events. That's one of the reasons why I'm here.
Okay, a few icebreaker questions. So, can you tell us something about yourself? Something that you can share on this podcast. A fun fact,
Sige.
or what do you do in your spare time?
Oh, I'm a nerd, and one of the things that I like doing is researching about food. So I've run a food blog since around 2003 yata. So when I have time, I go around and the things that I try to look for are native food. So, yon.
Okay, thank you, Karen. So let's go to our guest, our special guest, Miss Professor Aaron Jed. Aaron Jed, so welcome to SITREP, and glad to have you here. And thank you for sparing your time to be with us this Sunday. Say hi to our viewers and listeners.
Thank you, sir, and happy Sunday to you both. And I'm thankful po to SitRep for the kind invite to be on your podcast. And it's good po that we will discuss things that affect the Philippines and our country's national interest, so that we can ano po, enlighten our countrymen and viewers here and abroad, or
Okay, so
listeners.
I will ask. Yep, I will ask the same question. So, what is your, do you have a hobby? What do you do in your spare time? Tell us something about uh, yourself, Professor.
Yeah, so of course, as an academic, I'm fond of reading and uh, watching also movies, and uh, and of course on Sundays, spending time po with the family, and the usual things. Yun lang po.
Okay, so our main topic for today's podcast is about POGOs. Since their legalization in 2016, POGOs have become a booming sector in the Philippines, but now it's banned. But now without controversy. So what started as a promising economic venture has now spiraled into a nexus of of crime and corruption, and linking the Philippines with notorious Chinese crime syndicates. We have from kidnapping, money laundering, to it has become also a political issue, di ba? So yung the ramifications are far reaching and profound. So let's start with the first question, Professor. Can you explain what was the role of POGOs in the Philippine economy and why they were initially seen as beneficial? before they were banned by our current president. So yes,
Mhm.
tell us about a little bit of history. Explain to us in layman's term, or in the simplest terms of how it started in the Philippines.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, before we talk about online gambling, these POGOs, we must first look into how our country liberalized towards, casinos, the brick and mortar casinos. And this happened during the time of President Arroyo. Okay, so we welcome the opening of many casinos because it will contribute to the country's economy. So they will contribute gaming
Mhm.
revenues, and there will be uh, gamers that will come in. Okay, so we were enticed by the surplus capital of these gamblers. Okay, and then eventually, because of the modernization na rin, or the advent of technology, um, gambling transition from just physical brick and mortar casinos to online gambling. Okay, so what happened was that
Mhm.
uh, gamblers, for example, in China, do not have to physically be in the Philippines to be able to gamble. Okay, so remotely they can place their bets, and many gamblers actually find gambling entertaining, so they're willing to spend all this expend this capital that they have. And so this pogo industry was, I believe, formalized, proliferated during the time of President Duterte. Okay, and
Mhm.
so same thing, same logic, that this will bring the country a lot of economic benefits. Okay, and since the employees of these pogos will be in the country, so they will contribute to the real estate market. They will patronize our goods and services, things like that. So back then, in the early term of President Duterte, you saw the proliferation of Chinese restaurants, right?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
and the real estate market actually boomed, also because of the pogo. So they were taking up a lot of office spaces and also residential spaces. Okay,
Right.
so in that sense, so there were direct and indirect contributions to the economy. Okay, but then as through time, pogos became a front, for uh, malign and illegal activities, because what happened was that
Mhm.
criminal syndicates started to to capitalize on pogos, to conduct their illegal activities like money laundering, kidnap for ransom, human
Scams.
trafficking. Yes, scam. So pogos have become hubs, especially when during the pandemic, because
Mhm.
unemployment increased in China. Okay, so the gamblers then ran out of surplus capital to expend. So
Okay.
the online gambling industry here, the pogos, running out of clients and customers, transitioned from online gambling to scamming. Okay,
Right.
um, so that's why we see a lot of spams on our phone, for example, and that's it. That's what these people are doing. So some people are
Mhm.
being coerced into doing these things. So that's what you will see for example, in Pampanga. They're locked up inside compounds and they're being detained. Uh, they're being kept there against their will because they're simply mandated or forced to scam
Right.
other people. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Karen, feel free to interject if you have a follow-up question to our guest. So basically, Professor, when did you start observing or documenting behavior ng Pogos? What what year did you start having an
I
interest?
Right. So I believe since Chinese politics and foreign policy and Chinese related things are part of my areas of interest. So when we saw the boom of Chinese presence in the Philippines during the time of President Duterte, I started to uh, keep track of their activities, not just POGOs, but the state-led uh, activities and projects during that time. In fact, I wrote something about it called the, I can share it with you guys. It's called the Chinese
All right.
Wave in the
The Chinese
Philippines.
way.
Yeah, so this the rise of this Pogo industry coincided with the increase in Chinese presence in the country in terms of legit or legitimate Chinese investments and tourism. Okay, and so there has been some sort of a confluence with all of these things if you also take into account the developments in the West Philippine Sea. Okay, and
Mhm.
that simply clouds our judgment. So right now, when we talk about China, it's like anything Chinese is bad except for food. So I think it has somehow come to that point, mainly because of what's happening in the West Philippine Sea, which is a major source of mistrust between us and China.
Okay, let's go to the connection of Pogos and the West Philippine Sea. Karen, do you have a question about how Pogos are somewhat related to the issue of West Philippine Sea? You can go ahead and ask.
Yes. Yes, but I would like to ask something first, no? Backtrack and let's see the bigger picture. Because we've always read about POGOs or similar setup in other countries in Southeast Asia. But aside from Southeast Asia, Professor Jed,
Mhm.
where else have the Chinese put up similar gaming companies? I heard there's one or several in Dubai, in the UAE. Are there other places that they've set up similar, uh, how do you call them, enterprises?
Mhm. Yeah, actually, from what I know po, because since we, in the latter part of President Duterte's term, since we started to crack down on the Pogo industry, some of them have left and have transferred to the Middle East, I believe, as you said po, Dubai. And I'm not so sure if there are others, but in Southeast Asia, there are also there used to be a lot in Cambodia and in Myanmar, if I'm not mistaken, Vietnam. But the online gambling industry in Cambodia had already closed down because the Chinese government requested the Hun Sen government then, to shut down the online gambling industry. And Hun Sen, having very very close relations with the Chinese government, complied immediately. Okay, so he listened to the Chinese in shutting down the industry, and the Chinese government, contrary to mainstream uh, opinion, is actually also against online gambling or POGOs because it harms their society. In fact, many families have been broken because of online gambling, because the heads of the families in China, instead of devoting the money for their families, have actually been wasting their money, to gambling. Okay, and the Chinese
Oh,
government, yeah, the Chinese government also has an incentive to crack down on gambling. So because it harms their citizens, their citizens themselves are becoming victims of human trafficking. They're being deceived into a false job offering. Okay, only to find out that they will be forced into committing online scamming and things like that. So the Chinese government is really keen on maintaining social stability, and with gambling, there's actually a lot of capital that's going out of China, and the Chinese government actually does not want that. Okay, they want the money to stay in China. Okay? So for social and economic reasons, and knowing that that illegal is gambling in China, um, that's why the Chinese government is has been telling the Philippine government to also shut down and crack down on POGOs.
Okay. If China is so against online gambling and has pressured other countries to close down their operations, why is it, or what is it doing? I mean, China, what is it doing about the Golden Triangle, which is right at its doorstep? But pause that thought first. Medyo may konting question ako, Prof Jed,
Mhm.
ha? What is
Yes
the
po.
Golden Triangle and why is it called that?
Well, so the Golden Triangle po no, is a tri-border area in Indochina, Myanmar, Thailand, and Cambodia, I believe. So there's been a lot of negative connotation when it comes to the Golden Triangle because it is believed that uh, transnational crime or criminal syndicates thrive in that part of the world. So um, actually, drugs. Examples would be drugs, wildlife trafficking, also scamming. So in fact, the model of the pogos that we are experiencing and seeing here in the Philippines is actually has parallels with what is taking place in the Golden Triangle. Okay, so there are similar models. Okay? And so it is very likely that the syndicates operating in the Philippines are linked to somehow, to a certain extent, to those in the Golden Triangle. Yeah. So as to the question about the Chinese government's pressure, yeah, so actually they have appealed to us. In fact, no, the Chinese embassy in the Philippines, the Chinese Foreign Ministry, and President Xi Jinping himself had appealed to President Duterte then to shut down online gambling, just as they had appealed to Hun Sen of Cambodia. The problem was that President Duterte was unwilling to shut down the Pogo industry because allegedly it's bringing the country economic benefits. Um, but then, of course, there are a lot of social costs already during that time. So, in other words, it is on the side of the host country on what to do with pogos. In this case, it is on us whether we want to ban it or not. If we want to ban it, China will welcome it. In fact, when President Marcos in his SONA announced the banning of the pogos, a few days later, the Chinese embassy issued a statement welcoming that pronouncement of President Marcos. Which only goes to show that um, they're also against crime and criminality. And I think by that pronouncement of the president, we have done our part, okay? Because our side is the ones that's really giving license and giving these POGOs the platform to continue to operate. So by year end, as the president said, by December, so let's see how these POGO operations uh, have winded down their activities.
So that brings me back to my original question. If China is so against online gambling and they've asked, as you mentioned, uh, us, the Philippines, Cambodia also, what is it doing about the Golden Triangle? Have they
Yeah,
asked the other countries also? And how come we see that these other countries are supposedly more subservient to China? But what has been done and what is the status? How come the Golden Triangle is still the haven for criminals for Chinese operations?
yeah, good question. Actually, the Chinese government also has law enforcement cooperation and agreements with those countries, especially in the Mekong countries. In fact, they have a maritime law enforcement patrol that they usually conduct in the Mekong River. So the Chinese government, has limitations in terms of cracking down on this. In fact, because you have to consider also the agency of the governments in the Golden Triangle, Burma, for example. Myanmar, and Thailand. We also have to understand that just like in Pampanga, um, how were those POGO operators able to set up shop in Pampanga? So that means the syndicates could have already infiltrated various levels of government, which makes it very challenging already, to crack down and nip in the bud. But from time to time, actually, you will get news that Thailand, Myanmar, Cambodia will send fugitives back into China because they're also wanted in China. So it is really a problem that's causing a lot of trouble for the region, and so I think concerned countries should really join hands in continuing to combat these criminalities and syndicates because they're just a full web of illicit activities. And yeah.
One of the reasons
I
why I
also
asked, oh, sorry, Alex. So one of the
go
reasons why
ahead.
I ask about the Golden Triangle is because Guo Huaping or Alice Guo is
Mhm,
reportedly moving towards the Golden Triangle. This was mentioned by the PAOK spokesperson, Dr.
mhm.
Wilson Casio. So do you have information on her clan and their business interests? Do they really have something or a place there in the Golden Triangle?
Well, I also just read it on news reports that they do have business over there. So, which only goes to show that the way they operate, transcends national borders. Okay, and their networks actually is just extensive in the region. So that's why I think, if true, she feels safe going there, knowing that there will be people who will be accommodating her. So I think it's incumbent upon our government to coordinate with governments in the Golden Triangle. If we were able to ask for the repatriation of her sister and another companion, then the same thing should also happen to Guo Huaping, to Alice Go. Okay, because really she must be made accountable for her crimes, for deceiving the Filipino people, and for fabricating public documents. I mean, her family altogether. So yeah, it could be that they also have operations over there in that part of Southeast Asia as well.
So what happens if she is successful in getting there? Because according to Dr. Casio, if Alice Guo or Guo Huaping ends up in the Golden Triangle, and he says it's the end of the story, game over. I think that's what he said. Why would it be difficult to find her or apprehend her once she gets to the Golden Triangle? So these are also ASEAN countries like
Mhm.
Indonesia and Malaysia. So again, the question is, why would it be more difficult to apprehend her or find her if she gets there?
Well, perhaps, like I said a while ago, it could be that governments in other countries could have also been um, co-opted already, just as they have in the Philippines in terms of some local governments. In fact, as the president said, heads should roll, in terms of how Alice Go got away. And the problem with us is that we are not cracking down on Filipinos who are enablers of illegal activities. We're so fixated in venting our anger to China, to Alice Go, but we do not go after the accomplices. And we should, because, their illegal activities would not have been consummated in the first place without the people who helped facilitate, you know, those illegal activities. For example, who fabricated her birth certificate? Because the mere fabrication of that birth certificate had led to her acquiring a passport, and then from there, she's gotten to do so many illegal things. It already spilled over. Now, so I am not saying that we should be dissuaded by the fact that, assuming she was able to make it to the Golden Triangle, I think what our government should do is to still continue to work with law enforcement in Cambodia, Thailand, and Myanmar. But as you can see in Myanmar right now, there's been a lot of, it's a country in distress right now. And criminality syndicates thrive where there is weak governance, where there is bad governance, where there is weak political system and fragile political institutions, because they can simply bribe and buy off the leaders of those areas or countries, if that is the case, you know. So that becomes then a vicious cycle, with people in government in their pockets. They simply, that means they have protectors, and they can virtually do whatever they want, which is the sad thing, you know. Mhm.
Okay. Let me ask a follow-up question, if I may. Uh, was it a good thing that Alice Go was able to escape? Because that way we could trace or figure out somehow a web of connection, that it's not just the syndicate, it's not just operating locally, but they have connections, or might be operating in this case, di ba, have connections to syndicates in the Golden Triangle. So was it a good thing that Alice Go have escaped?
No, I don't think it's a good thing, because she was able to escape liability and not face our laws and be held liable for what she has done. But I guess that incident of her escaping only goes to show that we need to have closer collaboration in terms of law enforcement, and in terms of law enforcement with other ASEAN countries. In fact, this thing we could already course through ASEAN, you know, through various ASEAN mechanisms. In fact, not just ASEAN, but even Interpol as well. And with the United States, FBI or CIA, with all the intelligence agencies um, in the region and other concerned countries. So that, I think, should be the priority for our government right now, because this sets a bad precedent. You know, imagine if this would happen again, they would just think that simply they can get away with it, because um, they can pay off many people, and to just allow them to slip away. And that's really not a good thing. And it sets
Mm.
a bad precedent going forward.
So, in your opinion, it was a mix of, let's say, negligence on our yung government agencies, di ba? Like, for example, yung Bureau of Immigration, right? There is a
Mhm.
possibility that Alice Go and her cohorts might have bribed off immigration officials, right?
Mhm.
And also the possibility that yes, aside from bribing officials, it's also there's also a factor, 'di ba, ng ano din, ng a web of let's say yung conspiracy, 'di ba? So they have successfully infiltrated, rigged our kumbaga local how we do things here in the Philippines, right? So
Mhm.
was it do you think what should be improved in terms of our, like for example dun sa Bureau of Immigration?
Yeah, actually, if you would notice, in recent months and years, there's been a lot of raids, POGO raids by our law enforcement. But what you would find curiously, there has not been a big fishes that had been caught in these raids, in these sting operations. You will only find victims, employees. So where are the big bosses? Okay, and also as they get access to where the big bosses live, they found nobody there. So where have they gone? And in fact, even before the authorities got to those areas, they've already escaped. Okay, so our law enforcement were not able to catch anyone as they arrived in the area. So it is said that um, somebody or some people perhaps could have tipped off the information that law enforcement was um, uh, on the way, and so that only goes to show, the how the modus operandi, how they do their modus operandi with respect to these things, with respect to evading our authorities. And like I said, we must cleanse our ranks, okay? Because if not for them, um, these criminals, their principals, would not be able to consummate their illegal activities. So, from what I've read in the news, maybe from what you've read as well, we have not yet found any Filipino accomplices, right? It's all just victims, employees, and
Mhm.
it's quite unfortunate.
What did we
We have
learn from, sorry,
Go ahead,
Alex?
Karen.
So what did we learn from these POGO hearings, no? Both from the Senate and the House of Representatives. It just laid bare the vulnerabilities of our system, that anyone from within and even outside state actors, or ayan, foreign state actors, can legally uh, exploit our system to set up fronts, uh, what PAOK would call scam farms. Although, as Prof Jed said, I think in another interview, the relationship between state actors and the scam farms is not yet established. That's true. But the possibilities, no? So these legitimate organizations are hiding money laundering, human trafficking, white slavery, and other scams. So, Prof. Jed, I would like to know, or I'm very, very curious. So, do you think we can cleanse, or we can reorganize our system in perhaps a year or two, uh, for us to plug in the leaks, so to speak, or to plug in the flaws?
Mhm. Yeah, so once when Senator Gatchalian called for a press con, he likened what's happening right now in our country, POGOs, to narco politics. And I believe you already know po, no, how narco politics operate. So it's basically the same, but it's just that here we're not talking about drugs. We're talking about scams, illegal gambling, and so on. But the methods are basically the same in terms of co-opting um, people in government, in terms of facilitating illegal activities. Only the commodity is different. Okay, so we have a lot to learn, I think, from Mexico. The challenges also that Mexico is facing in dealing with narco politics. Okay, and as President Marcos said, heads will roll. Let's hope so, because otherwise, these people will just go scot free. And as I said a while ago, it will set a bad precedent where, as long as you have money here in the Philippines, then it will continue to do the talking. You know. So well, let's hope not that it's simply a case of money talks in the Philippines, because that undermines our political institutions, that undermines public confidence in our government, and these are not good things. And as to the what, sorry, I forgot the other question po.
So I was just asking if you think in a year or two we can plug in the leaks.
Well, yun, so it might take a while po, no? But let's hope the president will continue to monitor this and track the developments regarding this, because the longer it takes, or the longer it gets, the deeper might be the infiltration will be of, you know, these foreign syndicates, or and their ilk. So it might take a while, and we need to see samples of, like I said, enablers being caught, you know, um, and the extent uh, by which our government has already been co-opted. So let's give the president the benefit of the doubt, and together with concerned government agencies like the DOJ, NBI, PNP, okay, PIDEA, or hopefully they can produce results in a matter of months.
Okay, Professor, let's go back to the topic of criminal activities associated with Pogo. So over time, di ba, Pogos have been linked or associated to a range of criminal activities. We're talking about human trafficking, prostitution, kidnapping for ransom, uh, illegal detention, and torture. So basically, they have set up shop here, these syndicates, right? And doon sa Pogo hubs, where they found these criminal activities, and they found evidence that it has taken place, di ba? Itong mga criminal activities.
Mhm.
May nakita silang mga military badge. I don't know what's the right term for it. For example, there was meron silang nahanap na police badge or military badge of some sort. So, do you think the Chinese militia or military have used Pogo to kind of use that as an infiltration, as a way to infiltrate us, di ba?
Mhm.
Is it a possibility na they right now may mga Chinese police na, may mga Chinese soldiers in our
Mhm.
country. It is a risk, di ba? It's a national security issue. So
Mhm.
what do you think?
Yeah. Okay. So I understand where this concern is coming from, po, no? With all these things, like the Chinese military might already be here, and this stems from the tensions and the hostilities that's happening in the West Philippine Sea. So it's like everything Chinese, we are already skeptical, and we there's a lot of mistrust towards China, of course, in large part because of what they're doing in the West Philippine Sea. But two things I'm gonna say about the popular notion about POGOs in the Chinese government. As I said a while ago, if the Chinese government is the one that's telling us to ban the POGO industry, why will they want this platform of espionage to be curtailed? You know, if it is serving them purpose, why is it that they are welcoming and that they are encouraging us to ban the Pogo industry? So for me, it does not add up. If they're using Pogos for espionage, then they shouldn't say publicly and they shouldn't encourage us to crack down on Pogos. Now, on the uniforms that have been found in those areas, I don't know if you have been to Camp Crame. In front of Camp Crame, there are vendors there who sell military and police uniforms. Actually, so I've been to China,
Mm.
and in China there are many vendors like that. There are many areas in China where you can access and replicate military uniforms. Okay, so what my assumption on this is that these pogo syndicates, criminal syndicates, are using that uniform to intimidate would be or possible victims. You know, they pretend that they are persons in authority. You know, they are deceiving the human trafficking victims. Okay, they're and other people. You know, so I think that's the reason why these uniforms have been found. And interestingly, what you would find quite uh, unusual in one of the uniforms that was found is that I don't know if you know Band of Brothers. There is a patch. There's a patch there. Easy of the Easy Company. Easy Company was one of those airborne units that landed in Normandy during World War II. Okay, and that patch was uh, was stitched on the PLA uniform. So it seems like they're just using it for fun or something. You know, they're not using it appropriately because a PLA uniform having a badge of an American airborne unit is just, uh, it's just, I think, funny to see. So these Pogo criminal syndicates are not using the uniforms the right way. Okay, that's what my take on that.
Okay, so yung okay, I got you, professor. So basically you're saying na the pogos, they don't have any connection with the Chinese government. So let's go back to some of the accusations that was accusations ng against pogos kasi okay, they have also been accused of influencing local
Mhm.
politics by funding candidates and elections. And
Mhm.
what is your opinion on this? Kasi doon nagtataka yung mga tao na maybe maybe pogos have something to do with Chinese government, right? Kasi all they sa perception, especially sa mga tao na of course it's part of warfare, right? Divide and conquer. So do you think ito yung connection as well? They are using Pogo to basically
Mhm.
bribe local politicians, funding candidates like what happened to Alice Go. What is your opinion on this?
Yeah, so well, so Alice Go, I think, is being funded by the Pogo criminal syndicate, right? Because, like I said, even the Chinese government is happy that we are cracking down on Pogos. In fact, so assuming that the Chinese government is behind Pogos and publicly they're telling us to ban it, so why are we not banning it? The problem is on us, isn't it? Um, because we continue to allow it. President Duterte actually welcomed all forms of capital from China, whether legit or this pogo. Okay, so like I said, from when you say uh, there is someone, a state actor behind the pogos, it is also similar to saying that there is a state actor behind the narco industry in Mexico. Now, which country would that be? Which country would state actor would fund the drug industry in Mexico? Will it be China as well or other Latin
Mm.
American countries? So all I'm saying is that because we do not, China is a cause of alarm for the Philippines, certainly because of national security, because of our state-to-state dispute in the West Philippine Sea. And but we also need to be on guard against causing unnecessary um, insecurity or paranoia on other things. And like I said, on Pogos, unless there's a clear evidence pointing to the connection between Chinese criminal syndicates and the Chinese government, And then uh, that shows that
Mhm.
there is a linkage. But absent that, then we can say that state actors and non-state actors in this case are quite different. Yeah.
So our actions against Pogo somehow did it help in the become did it help in deterring aggressive Chinese behavior? Kasi you said that we're helping Chinese government when we are doing something against Pogo. So does it kind of help deter Chinese government from doing further aggressive and dangerous behavior in the West Philippine Sea?
Mm. Well, actually, so these are two separate issues. We have some convergence when it comes to POGOs, but when it comes to the West Philippine Sea, unfortunately, they're still doing what they're doing to us over there, and that's why the Philippine public is still overwhelmingly against China. Okay, so that really needs to be fixed, and it's also with respect to the West Philippine Sea, it's on the Chinese side in terms of how they would behave there if they want to uh, get a favorable impression from the Filipinos, right? So these are two separate issues, and yes, we continue to cooperate on law enforcement. But then when it comes to geopolitics and the West Philippine Sea, we're totally on the uh, opposite sides of the political fence. And it remains to be seen how China will change its behavior in the West Philippine Sea. Okay? Because today, I think just today, there's again news that our vessel, one of our vessels, or two of
Yes.
them, got water cannon by China. So that is very unfortunate, when these things continue to happen.
I
Uh,
would like
Go ahead.
I would like to agree with Professor Jed when he says that there are points of convergence. However, we also know that China is known for its cognitive dissonance when it comes to policies and its actions. Look, they signed UNCLOS, they signed all the protocols, but when it came to uh, litigation, when we filed our case against them, they have become very selective and say that they chose to ignore it, and they are ignoring it. So when we invoke the Hague arbitral ruling, they say it's illegal when it's not. They signed they signed the protocol, for goodness sake. And then, of course, China is also known for its unrestricted warfare. What does this mean? Maybe Professor Jed be it would be better if he explains it to us. He's more qualified than I am.
Mhm. Yeah, so basically, actually, there's um, unrestricted warfare, political warfare, and many, many other forms of warfare. And if you are a fan of Sun Tzu's Art of War, you can learn a lot from it. And so that is true. China has been selective in what provisions to follow with respect to UNCLOS. And that is a natural great power behavior that is not unique to China. Okay, even Russia is selective in other countries. At times, even the United States. So countries, especially if they are strong, will abide by those norms that will serve their interest. Okay, so that's why what the Philippines is doing is that we are striving to create a favorable regional balance of power. Okay, uh, and we're doing that by coordinating with the U.S. and in other countries. So as to the warfare that was mentioned, Yes, actually, we should be on guard on that. Um, but you see, in those other forms of warfare, okay, um, China is not saying, for example, that oh, let's cut tourism, let's cut cultural ties, let's cut public diplomacy efforts. They're not saying that we cut them because these diplomacy efforts are benefiting them. By contrast, you hear them say in public, shut down POGO, crack down on POGO, because their citizens are becoming victims as well of the criminal syndicates. Okay? So again, going back, whose fault is it that POGOs continue to operate in the Philippines? As I said, now President Marcos has been discerning. Uh, if you would contrast it to President Duterte, because he took the bold move, to shut down the Pogo industry, okay, to face these criminal syndicates. Okay, and so right now we can say that we're exercising our agency, okay, and we're doing what's necessary to safeguard our society, our political institutions, our political system, our democracy. Okay, and we cannot allow the likes of Alice Go to continue to tamper with our democracy because she's not a bona fide Filipino. Okay, and so let's hope that with this policy of the president and with the help of senators like Senator Gatchalian, Senator Risa, that more illegal networks, illegal agents will be unearthed, okay, so that we can get to the bottom of this and we will make liable those who have erred and have been in the wrong. Okay.
Okay, so my next question is more of a political one. Kasi uh, comparing the previous administration and the current administration, there is a comparison lang in terms of foreign policy.
Mhm.
So there is a contrast, di ba? The president right now, our foreign policy aligns more that of the US compared to the previous one. So that's why part of his policy now is the crackdown of POGOs, 'di ba? Uh, how has this issue become a political issue as well in your opinion? Kasi nagko-compare na tayo ng ano eh.
Mhm.
So there is a tit for tat between supporters, right? They're
Right.
saying that the reason why the president is doing the crackdowns, it's going against the policy of his predecessor, right? So
Mhm.
that is the argument. So do you think it has also become a political issue or politically motivated?
Mhm. Yeah, certainly. So right now, battle lines I think are becoming clearer. Okay, because on the foreign policy front, you see the divergence already, right? President Duterte cozied up with China, and right now President Marcos has realigned the Philippines, has become more welcoming of the United States. Okay, and at the same time, so that's the foreign policy aspect. In terms of domestic politics, okay, you can also see that President Duterte was in favor of POGOs. President Marcos is anti-POGO. Okay, so I think this is the political and geopolitical implication of what's been happening. Clearly, President Marcos and President Duterte are divergent on foreign policy, and right now, because of the evolution, the recent developments in our domestic politics, President Marcos is also distancing himself from President Duterte. Plus, I think when it comes to the International Criminal Court, we can also see that the attitude of the Marcos administration um, is also quite receptive to ICC people visiting the country. So there has been right now, I would say, and President Marcos blames President Duterte, for example, in the gentleman's agreement that he entered into with China. So both domestic political issues and foreign policy issues have become ammunitions for both sides to shoot at each other. Okay, the Duterte camp are accusing President Marcos of getting us into a great power conflict between the U.S. and China.
Right.
So these are the things that you are the power plays that you are seeing right now.
Karen, do you have a follow-up question?
No, I'm okay for now.
Okay, so next question would be about the economic repercussions of the crackdown of Pogo. Do you think it has affected somehow our relationship with China in terms of economics? For example, there is I'm not sure what's the connection between Pogos and tourists, right?
Mhm.
Because there is a decline in Chinese tourism. Does it nagkaroon ba ng ng uh, anti, let's say, did it deter Chinese tourists from coming to the Philippines because of the growing anti-Chinese sentiment brought about by this issue, by this Pogo issue?
Mhm.
Are
Well,
they afraid to come here, or what's happening? What's happening
yeah.
with the current perception of Chinese citizens?
Mhm.
Kasi yung China may reputational cost, right, for what they're doing in the West Philippine Sea. What about us?
Mhm.
What's the reputational cost of the Philippines in because of the growing anti-Chinese sentiment?
Right. Actually, the on the first question, Pogos are not related to Chinese tourism. In fact, one of the reasons why Chinese tourists there's two reasons. The first one is that you know they know that the Philippines has sort of become a haven for Chinese criminal syndicates. And you have to note that these Chinese criminal syndicates target their own citizens. They kidnap Chinese nationals too. They kill Chinese nationals too. So that's why Chinese tourists, those innocent, normal Chinese tourists who want to go to the beaches, are dissuaded by even some investors, some business people, are dissuaded from coming to the Philippines because of these safety, personal security issues. Another reason why there's been a decline in tourism from China to the Philippines is geopolitics. Okay, right now I don't think the Chinese government has been very welcoming to its citizens in 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 telling that the Philippines is a tourist destination because of the because of the erratic geopolitical tensions that we are experiencing right now. So it has to do more with uh, criminality, safety, and geopolitics than POGOs, I would say.
So is that the reason why earlier today there's a news article on Filipino Chinese businessmen requesting that Chinese tourists should be given uh, the privilege of no visa entries in the Philippines? Have Chinese tourists, uh, is there a decline in the number of Chinese tourists visiting the Philippines? I mean, how defined is it?
I think from now to pre-pandemic levels, it hasn't recovered yet. So it's still very minimal, I would say. And so this proposal, I think it's the Federation of Filipino Chinese Chambers who proposed this. So if I think this needs to be qualified because again, while we do believe that there are really innocent Chinese tourists but at the same time, we also need to consider that there are criminals as well, and we simply cannot be naive about the possible risks that it could pose to our country. Let alone that we still have this pogo problem right now. So I think the DFA needs to assess that. While we do want tourists to come, we want to grow our tourist markets, but at the same time, really, we need to be vigilant about safeguarding our our national security. Okay, yeah.
Prof, I have a question. I'm not there. Someone mentioned, I think, was it DOF or another agency that
Mm-hmm.
said the social costs of POGOs far outweigh the benefits. Do we
Mm-hmm.
have a copy of that study, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe I haven't been digging
Right.
deep enough?
I think that's the DOF po who made that report. So I think in that study, so
So
I
there
guess
is a study.
yes po, there is a study, and they said that for one criminality or one uh, criminal incident, um, that deters hundreds or thousands of tourists from coming to the Philippines. So that is the equation or formula that they made. And so social instability, maritime and not maritime, um, criminalities actually offsets the possible influx of tourism. Okay, so in fact, that's true. So pogos are really doing us more harm than good, and it has the costs have outweighed the benefits.
So have these been assigned monetary costs? I mean values.
I'm not so sure po about the. I would have to look again at the study,
Oh,
but
kasi
the
interesting eh.
yes, but the conclusion there po, was that because of criminality, that actually deters tourists from coming into the Philippines. And so instead of tourists coming here and contributing to our economy, uh, patronizing our goods and services, they would rather not come here because of that, because of the criminality that has become a reputational cost for us, okay? And which has given us a bad image for other tourists or would be tourists.
As for my last question, Professor Jed, moving forward, okay, what advice or suggestion? Kasi what we're doing right now, there is a whole of nation government approach, right? We have the Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission. I think that's the that's the right term, investigating the Pogo hubs, right? And
Mhm.
it has implicated, different personalities from a former presidential spokesperson being linked to Pogos, and of course, uh, mga former government officials and probably former presidents as well, 'di ba?
Mhm.
So, do you think, and we have also take note, legislative inquiry, right? So the House of Representative are doing what we call quadcom hearings, right? So that is to
Mhm.
uncover yung conspiracy or yung uncover yung what the pogos are doing, 'di ba? With their criminal activities. Do you think what's your suggestion? Do we need to introduce new reforms or new laws, or what
Mhm.
kind of improvement should we do to address itong mga nangyari sa Pogo? For example,
Mhm.
they were able to bribe yung PSA, right? For them to acquire documents.
Mhm.
So, yes, first, what do we need new laws? Number two, what should we do to better improve our our government agency in uh, avoiding or stopping yung mga pogo activities like
Mhm.
bribing and bribing officials and mga fake documents, right? They're able to have fake passport, fake birth certificates. So
Okay.
yun. That's my question.
Right. So I think ano po, no, I think it's more a matter of because we already have laws in place against, for example, bribery, against falsification of public documents. These are all in place already. So I think it's a matter of political will, no? Kasi in Filipinos, kailangan po natin nung ano, may mga masampulan. Kasi wala pa po tayong nakikita ng mga napaparusahan na accomplices, kasabwat, wala pa po eh. So all that we've been seeing are victims of POGOs, employees, but these are basically the small fishes. Okay? So, siguro po, foreign big fishes and sa atin, yung mga local na big fishes, need to be unearthed. Okay? Sino po yung nag-facilitate ng mga illegal activities na yan? And how much were they paid for doing so? So right now, I think maganda po nakikita natin yung yung legislature natin and yung executive natin. The way I see it, they're working together. Okay, so the lower
Yes, yes.
house, the lower house and the Senate, they continue to conduct investigations, while yung the executive naman po, they should yun talaga no all out go after these criminals. Okay,
Mhm.
so the Senate and the House, they will urge transparency. They will use their power to investigate, and at the same time, it will boil down to the executive and its line agencies, to implement our laws and go after the culprits. Para yun po no, para justice will
Mhm.
really be served and our laws will not be desecrated. No?
Yeah, especially have you seen yung mga torture videos? It was shown
Mhm.
on a committee hearing sa House of Representative. And
Mhm.
yung mga torture videos was it shows like yung mga pogo they were torturing yung mga employees nila, and these are not Filipinos. These
Mhm.
are foreign nationals like Chinese, may isa ata Malaysian.
Mhm.
So what's the most shocking criminal activity in your opinion have they done in our shores in our country?
So I think yun po siguro no, without proper documents and all that, they were able to put up a paradise like
A
mega
haven.
yes, mega superstructures without the proper permits and things like that. So you can just imagine how was that possible. Okay, so we need to awaken reawaken our local governments. We need to check our local governments because it could be happening elsewhere as well, and so the DALG, again, the executive, as I said po, no, really need to 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 do their job. They're on the right track, but we need to see some ano po, results.
Okay, Karen, do you have any last questions for the professor?
I'm good.
Okay, let's thank you so much, Professor, for taking your time to be with us on this podcast. We are ano na to, episode 16. So, can you tell the viewers where they can find you? Do you have a social media account? Kasi mukhang bitin pa yung discussion eh. We have learned so much about from your perspective, from your viewpoint. So, they wanna know more about the topics that you research or you're interested. What's your social media accounts?
Yeah. So again, I wish to thank you po, no, SitRep for having me here. Very enlightening discussions po with you, and more power po no, with what you're doing. And yes, as flashed on the screen po, no, I have an X account, so they can follow me po there on Jed Rabena. Yes.
Okay, X account, and then yep. All right. So this is SitRep, and thank you again, Professor Jed, for sparing your time with us this Sunday. And please follow SitRep PH. We are going to post this on YouTube as well. So we have a YouTube channel. It's YouTube/, SitRep PH. That's our handle. So we also have Facebook. It's called SitRep PH. And once again, I'd like to thank my guest co-host for today's podcast, Karen. Karen, thank you again. Thank you as well for being with us. And yep.
Thank you also for
Yeah.
inviting me.
Thank you again
So,
po.
Professor Jed, this is a developing story about Pogo. So we're looking forward to have you again. We're
Yes,
gonna in
sure.
the next podcast, diba? We're gonna discuss ano yung updates about this
Yes. Hopefully
topic
po
about
may
Pogo.
positive developments na by then.
Yes, yes. So thank you for being with us. And this is Sitrep and Mabuhay Pilipinas.
Thank you. Thank you po. Happy Sunday.